Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of the Artsy Raven. Our special guest today is Tao Wong. And Tao Wong is a full-time author in the sci-fi and fantasy genres, writing predominantly in the LitRPG and Xianxia subgenres. Multiple times international Amazon bestseller, he is best known for The System, Apocalypse, and A Thousand Lee Universes, with over 40 full-length novels and numerous shorter works published. Tao was a finalist for the Kindle Storyteller UK Award in 2021. So welcome, Tao.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So Tao, talk to me a little bit. How did you start doing this writing stuff, and how did you write over 40 novels? What's going on?
Okay, well, I actually just started mostly by, I guess, accident. I mean, like most writers, I've been writing bits and pieces here and there. I think I wrote like 2 books before I was, 25, really bad books, like horrendous, but technically books in that it had a beginning and an end kind of thing. And I wrote some short stories, and then for a long time, actually, I hadn't really written anything, non any fiction at least. And then in about 2017, early 2017, maybe late 2016, I was reading a lot of and watching a lot of anime, specifically things like Danmachi, Grimgar of Fire and Ash, and I was actually reading their light novels. And at some point, I don't know how, I went, oh, there's got to be more of this out there that's free to read. And so I know I must have hit Google and searched it up, and I came across Royal Road, which is this free fiction website where people were posting, lit RPG works. Not that I knew that they were called lit RPG works at that time. It just, the type of books that I was reading. And so I read a bunch of works by Ascend Online, Viridian Gate Online, the game, and I decided that, hey, I wanted to write something of my own. So I started writing my own versions of these stories. And I think in a few months, I turned around and went, oh, hey, I have a book here again. And because I knew about self-publishing, and I knew that I didn't really have the time or desire to go through the whole trad pub dance, of getting a agent, and then, hopefully the agent sends your work out and so on and so forth. I decided to self-publish. And so I got myself a new cover. I did some editing on my own, and then I published it. And I was incredibly lucky to be in a time when everyone was looking for our LitRPG works on Amazon. And so they found my books, they started buying them. And then I got introduced by by some fans who were like, hey, do you know that you're writing LitRPG? And I'm like, what?
And that's... So what is that? What is LitRPG? Like, what's the difference between that and light novels? Like, some people have never heard of these terms.
Right. So light novels are basically a Japanese invention, a type of book, really. It's about generally 40 to 50,000 words. Generally, they're taken from web serials that Japanese writers post online, and then they get put or go through contests and whatnot, and then they get pulled out to be printed as actual novels. They call them light novels because they're only 40 to 50K long. Generally, there is some very light art in there. Beyond that, it's just a type of book, really. No difference than a novel or a novella. It's a type of book, right? It's just defines a certain type of how the book is created. LitRPG itself was this subgenre that I was writing into, and the easiest way I can describe it is that it is about stories where the magic system is a very hard magic system, which is very similar to how game systems work. So everyone gets levels, everyone gets level ups, everyone gets experience, there are monsters with levels. And one of the defining characteristics of LitRPG, in my view, is that if you the protagonists inside the world understand that they are in a world with this hard magic system and are actively manipulating it to their betterment, just like we manipulate, levers and gravity, to make work easier for ourselves. A character in a lit RPG system might look at how they can increase their strength instead, to make picking up a rock much easier, or utilize ways of getting experience to go and make whatever job it is simpler. So there's always that kind of consideration of like game system, which is a hard magic system.
Now, so you started writing these lit RPGs, and but a lot of your books now are the Xianxia and the wuxia. Like, how
Yes.
did it go into that?
It's funny. There's two reasons why. The cultivation Xianxia web novels were very, very popular in China. And it has very much the same progression fantasy aspect of, your character is growing stronger. Wuxia books also have that, actually, just at a kind of lower power level, I would say. Xianxia is much higher power levels. You're generally fighting gods. The Xian side is immortal, right? So your entire Xian side is talking about immortal heroes, or in cultivation Xianxia, it's about becoming the immortal. And so a lot of the same reader base reading both Lit RPG and Xianxia, and I was one of those. I was reading Chinese web novel Xianxia Works, and I was not finding what I was used to. Because I watched a lot of old school wuxia works in the 1990s, all the movies, Swordsman and Swordsman 1 and 2, Hero, all of those works was something that I'd always watched and I loved. And, I'd read things like Return of the Condor Heroes, Storm Riders, Feng Wan. And all of this work was very thematic to my childhood, I guess. And a lot of the themes in there, a lot of the focus on family, on order, on the, struggle between tradition and morality and things like that, you didn't see, right? This desire to step away from the world while necessarily managing the evils of the world at the same time. All of these things I wasn't seeing inside the Chinese web novels that I was reading. You do see some of that in the Dan Mei work, but I wasn't reading all of that. Dan Mei being the boy love, more female-oriented works, like Unbound, Untamed. Untamed? Yeah, Untamed. So I wasn't seeing any of this work, and I was reading all of this, and I went, you know what? I want to write my own. And that's what I did. I wrote 1,000 Li as sort of a callback to the type of thematic elements that I wanted to see in these stories. I wanted to have a more grounded protagonist. I wanted them to be more based in traditional Chinese culture as I knew it, and I'm diaspora. I'm like third generation Malaysian Chinese diaspora.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna ask you where you were from.
yeah. So I'm going to point out that,
Yeah.
what I perceive as Chinese culture is
Yes,
not
it's
what
very
China
different.
Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
China Chinese, they went through their whole thing,
Yeah.
right? And communism and, all of those aspects have changed. What Hong Kong people are like,
Yeah.
very different from what I am.
Yes.
And while I am influenced a lot by by Hong Kong cinema back then,
Mhm.
I'm also influenced by a lot of the things that I learned. So a lot of this culture of Asian Chinese stuff is my viewpoint on, and the things that I want to see. But yeah, so 1,000 Li went well, and then I've been putting out 1,000 Li as the main Xianxia work that I have, and a bunch of short stories in there.
Now, how do you think the West is perceiving this? I think there's been a rise, I think, with Netflix and like anime, like all the stuff is coming to North America, and suddenly they realize, oh wow, there's like whole new genres they can read about. So,
Mhm.
what do you think the future is for all the stuff that you're
I'm
writing and whatnot?
I'm really excited. I mean, Tradpub already is putting out Xianxia works, like, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, is a great example of, Shanghai Immortals, another, I would say, Xianxia work. Again, they're all, and then there's also just general Asian, Chinese Asian urban fantasy or Chinese fantasy works. And you're already seeing all of TradPub putting it out and getting good reception for a lot of this stuff, I would say. Jiran J. Zhao did some amazing work that kind of did a sci-fi kind of take on, Chinese history, you know. Um, Water Outlaws was a retelling of an old Chinese, is it Water Outlaws? It's a new, I think it's Water Outlaws. It's a retelling of the margin, water margin, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and so we're seeing a lot of that in trad pub that's coming along. Um, I'm curious if we'll ever, I think it'll be a very long time before Hollywood catches up in terms of movies and, TV shows. I think we might see some more collaborations. Um, And I mean, it makes sense, right? You need the actors, you need the sets, you need all of that. But I think there'll be some collaborations with Chinese sets, maybe even Taiwan, which might make it easier for certain thematic elements that, China is hard set against not having, just because of their current politics. Um, but I expect that we'll see a rise of all of this in a lot more trad pub side. And I'm actually kind of excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you were saying about some of the themes not being seen in like the Asian dramas, like depending on which country it's produced, right? Like the Chinese government has a list of things you're allowed to produce. Like the stories you tell are sort of more limited compared to Hong
Yeah,
Kong or Malaysia or Singapore, so it's a little bit different.
yeah.
But
I
yeah.
expect that. I mean, they were very clear very recently that they don't want any more of the Dan Mei, the boy love.
Yeah, I know.
They
I
were
know all
very
those beautiful
no.
men out of
Uh,
jobs now. So no,
I
just kidding.
know. It
No.
was such a huge
Yeah.
popular thing.
Yeah.
So now they're cutting that out. I know that there's certain thematic elements about, where they're criticizing the Chinese royal imperial people,
Yeah, yeah. You can't have all
great.
those palace dramas where people are killing each other, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Though that's
Yeah,
like the
it's
most
certain
popular thing that's
Yeah,
probably
it's certain
coming out.
types of dramas that they just don't want,
Yeah, yeah.
where the criticism is there. There's certain types where, Genghis Khan or whatever, or the Manchus, they might not necessarily want them shown in a good light. I think all of that, I think we'll see, and that's why I think some places like Taiwan, which has a lot of history in producing, work like this, might see a surge and see Hollywood coming in to work with them.
Yeah, a lot of
You
it's the
know,
licensing, right? I mean, like my favorite is still TVB from Hong Kong, but their
Yep.
license is not being sold anywhere, right? Like you can
Oh
get the
God.
app yourself, but I mean, but you see the K-drama, Studio Dragon, Studio G, like they're selling their
Yeah,
license left, right, and center, so you could see
I
it
know.
everywhere, right? So it's
I
very
I
different.
really yeah, I really wish that they would sell their licenses to people like Netflix and whatnot. I'm just like, come on. I want to showcase
Yeah,
all of this stuff I saw to my kid. And you can't. And like
yeah.
all the new stuff that's seeing, I'm looking at the trailers and I'm like, I can't see all of these. Where
Yeah, I still have an old copy of The Legend of the Condor Heroes somewhere from the 80s. So, yeah.
I was gonna say which edition
Which,
before you
yeah.
mentioned the
Oh my
80s.
gosh, I can't. It was a VCD. It's the one with, oh gosh, I forget their names now. But the actress that committed suicide, that was Wang Yong. But anyhow, We'll talk about this offline. Okay, now you're one of the few full-time authors I know. So what were you doing before, and how did you decide to like become a full-time author?
Um, well, I was actually running my own business beforehand. I
Okay.
owned a game store called Starlit Citadel. It was based in Canada. We were mostly an e-commerce store, though towards the last few years of our existence, we actually had a physical store in Vancouver itself. Um, and I was doing that for 12, 13 years, for a very long time. And I have a background in marketing. Obviously I understand business somewhat. And so transitioning to be an independent author was very easy for me in that sense. A lot of the things that people stumble over was not an issue because I've done all of these things. Running a business, understanding all the back end side of it, as well as just um, the marketing, sales, and understanding all of that. So because I stumbled into LitRPG and it was doing really well, and I worked very, very hard to release a lot of books in the first couple of years, I managed to acquire a decent financial base. And because of that, when the lease for my business came up, I decided that it was better to um, just focus on being a full-time writer rather than struggle, try to
Yeah.
balance both things. At one point I was probably working 70 to 80 hours a week minimum. I think, I literally would finish my work for the business at end between about 7 to about 11 every night. I'd be writing kind of thing.
Wow. Now, I think I was on a panel with you, and you said in a year you produce a few books. Like it's not just one a year kind of thing.
No, I generally write between 6 to 700,000 words a year, which is works out to be about 2,000 words a day, which
Okay.
isn't, I work every day,
Yeah.
almost every day, really. Um, that's the way it works best for me. I can't, I don't do burst writing as much as some people do. So, I write about 2,000 words a day. I edit all of it and put it out. So that generally works out to between 4 to 8 books, sometimes a year, because it really depends on how long the books are. Technically, a novel is anything 40,000 words and higher, which is,
Mm.
you know, most of my big work, like 1,000 Li, The Fall Fall and whatnot, they are like 100 to 120,000 words. So they're big, but they're not humongous kind of thing.
Okay. Now, where do you publish them? Are you on like Ingram or Drop to Digital and all that stuff?
I depends on the books, right? Most of my work, my most popular work, The System Apocalypse, 1,000 Li, they are all currently in Kindle Unlimited exclusively. So all my ebooks are exclusive to Amazon. I get paid by the page there.
Mhm.
Um, I have print books that are through Amazon and Ingram Sparks. So those go out to and can be purchased by bookstores or libraries or the like. I also, if my books aren't, and I do have some series that are not in Kindle Unlimited, I do publish through people like Draft to Digital or Publish Drive, and those then go out to, well, wherever. Kobo helps me get my books into
Mhm.
bookstores, which is important up here in Canada, because we do get things like public lending right and excess copyright, which give us extra money for having books in libraries. And then I have audiobooks as well. And those again, a mixture of exclusive Audible, ACX technically. So it's Audible and iTunes, or the just wide and available everywhere.
So, what is your vision for your empire?
I don't really have much of a vision, in the sense that I try to take things, a day at a time. I have plans for what I'd like to see, but I'm incredibly fortunate to be at a stage where I don't where I'm comfortable, right?
Yes.
With my income and with my books going out. I have fans who really enjoy what I write. I hope I can keep them.
Mhm.
My goal really is to write the stories that I want to tell and just keep pushing them out. And hopefully, fans continue reading them.
Yeah,
If I can get a movie deal or TV deal or anime, I will not say no,
of
right?
course. Of course.
But, it's not, those are nice to think about ideas. It's not something that I can guarantee. What I can guarantee is writing good books.
Now, for indie authors, like, okay, and you have a marketing background, what is like one piece of advice you think you would give for marketing for like new authors and whatnot?
Um, Don't forget you have 4 Ps. I think one of the biggest things I run into is a lot of new authors, and sometimes the older ones, they only think about promotion, right? They don't understand that the other 3 Ps are as important, if not more. That's price, how you price, where you price, what you're pricing with, and what pricing models you're using matter, whether you're in Kindle Unlimited, you're wide, if you're going for penetration pricing or luxury pricing, like TradPub. TradPub is really luxury pricing with ebooks, right? Are you doing anything to anchor your prices to make it look like your prices are worthwhile, which a lot of it also then ties into your product. Are your covers on point for your market? Are you distributing to the right places? All of these things affect how well your promotions work. If you don't think about all of these things and how they fit into not just the strategy for your book itself, but your whole career, you can find yourself stumbling, and not getting the sales that you want. Or in some cases, I've seen people who have been successful finding that they don't want to keep doing what they've randomly stumbled into success on, because it's not the type of books that they want to write. So look at your other
Okay.
Ps, look at your strategy overall.
Okay, cool. So, Tao, you're going to do a reading for us. Can you tell us where you're reading, like what you're reading from, and a little bit of context before you start?
Sure. I'm going to read from the most recent book, in A Thousand Later Fall, which you can see in my background. And I'm just going to read chapter 1, which will give you an introduction to where our protagonist is at the moment and what has happened for him. And the protagonist is uh, Long Wu Ying, and he's he's an elder at the Verdant Green Water set at the moment, facing his trials and tribulations of trying to become an immortal. A Thousand Liter Fall. Chapter 1. Ominous black clouds gathered high above the mountain range, lightning crackling along their edges, illuminating shadows within. The deep pall cast by the shadows shrouded the city, and the verdant green water set, the air underneath unusually dry and filled with electric promise. The clouds swirled unnaturally and slowly, the beginnings of a funnel forming as the winds blew erratically. Wisps of moisture and leaves and dust marked the funnel's touchdown position at the other end of Heaven's Ascension Peak, the tallest and steepest mountain in the range. A short distance away on a nearby cliff, the watchers stared with bated breath. Amongst the audience for this unnatural event were numerous famed elders of the set, the fairy Yang Fai Yuan, she who commanded the feared Whispering Blossoms organization, a female-led coterie of individuals who sought to stem the abuse and corruption of the dark set and set aright malodorous practices that are rooted within the orthodox. The former Buddhist monk Liu Tu-hei, Heaven's flaming staff, who offered words of wisdom and compassion and the searing punishment of the heavens in equal measure. Where martial cultivators might decline to intervene, the elder might take action. So the layman whispered. No wonder the number of petitioners grew every passing day. The department head of the Verdant Green Waters Apothecaries, Li Liu Song, the Jade Hand, the weakest in terms of cultivation among the numerous watchers, but well respected for her outstanding knowledge and skill. With the retirement from public duties by the other more senior members, Elder Li was the foremost tragically of the sect. Numerous other elders of less fame were present too. Few would give up the opportunity to witness another ascension, though none stood as close to those three powerful personages whose presence made the heads of lesser sects bend at their very attendance. None were great friends with the one who sat upon the peak, a storied figure in his own right. And one other was there, an honored guest, an interloper, yet one who had returned again and again to the sect, so none gainsaid her presence at this time. None would dare, for it was her return this final time, after a long absence, that had been a catalyst for the event. Young Mu, the merchant princess of Seven Kingdoms, the golden merchant, whose wealth and network of contacts stretched across thousands of li and multiple kingdoms, even to the fabled Nanyue and the frozen north. Even so, she stood apart from the trio, the pale glitter of her robes and her unnatural stillness, giving watchers the impression of a silver statue staring at the peak, and the individual who floated there, the reason for the commotion, the cause of the cloud bank, and the lightning that struck. Long Wu Ying, the verdant gatherer, head of the Department of Wandering Gatherers, honored elder of the verdant green water sect, wielder of the bloody red, bearer of the heart of the Jian, and Seven Winds body cultivator. The crowd below were as clear as if he could see them. Sight would have given him less information and truth, for he could sense the way the winds had to move around their bodies, the way they shifted with each breath and each impatient twitch. Inhale, and the world seeped into his body, the familiar scent of jasmine and tea, of honest sweat and soap beads, of all the basic elements of qi and more. Grass and earth below, the humid moisture of heavy clouds above, twisting metal flame and hot air mingling and pulsing in his hands. Exhale, and with his breath, his aura stretched farther, expanding across the mountain peaks and the slopes below, the skies above, and the clouds that funneled energy down into him. He wove this energy through his body and his aura before directing it to what he clutched. Golden runes floating around him and across his hands, dancing in intricate designs, and coming apart as he guided the formation through sheer will alone. Formation flags and stones sunk into the land around him had long ago cracked and broken under the intense heat put out by the item he held. All the while, he tore the energies from the heavens and pulled them to him, encompassing the pulsing heart that sat between his hands. A still beating heart, but one that no longer bled, burning but never shrinking. Every breath, his body wavered, threatening to spill across the barriers of material and immaterial. Every moment, wounds blossomed across his skin as old injuries were revealed and burned away, only for flesh to reform from swirling air. The winds, familiar companions, danced across the peak and brought with them knowledge of our events and nearby tragedies. From the south, the smell of old tar and rotting meat stained the very air as a civil war brewed and a corruption deep within a kingdom spilled forth. From the west drifted desert sands and hot spices, taunting Wu Ying with hints of lands he had never visited. The memories of esoteric chants and benedictions rose in the air, even as the golden light played across his skin. Cooling winds of the north chilled the air, controlling the boundaries of heat and joining the mix of the central winds as they rose, pulling the warmth skyward to the clouds above. Most of all, the mortal winds, the eastern wind whispered to Wu Ying of marching armies and training men. So much knowledge, so much information. Yet it was the supernatural winds of the heavens and the hells that Wu Ying focused upon, feeling their pulse and beat around him. The wind of the thousand hells scoured the wind cultivator's body, burrowing deep within him, ripping clear burned flesh, twisting meridians and cracked bones from his injured form. Punishment, benediction, cleansing. The winds of hell offered it all and then some. Afterwards, as the winds of hell left, Wu Ying bled, bleeding and injured. The heavenly winds returned, wrapping his wavering form in celestial light and the Tao of order and synergy, passing on blessings and recommendations in equal order for the ones above. 6 heavens, 6 blessings, 6 punishments. Lightning flashed down from the sky once again, striking at Wu Ying's seated body. It trod through the rising winds and shimmering heat waves, dancing along unseen pathways in the air to crash into him before passing through to the ground itself. On delicate winds, Yang Mu whispered words rose to Wu Ying's ears, even as his burned flesh slowed off and his blinded eyes reformed tree. He clutched the heart in his hands, enchantments and arcane glyphs and characters reforming in golden light as Wu Ying cajoled the chi of the world to do his bidding. He could feel the heartbeat slow, the energy imparted reduce it by a notable degree for the first time. Pain was a companion, a nagging and constant companion that Wu Ying had grown used to. The moment he began the process of rebuilding his body with the aid of the Chiu Fing heart, Wu Ying knew he could not stop. How Yang Mu had managed to acquire even a single heart was a story in itself, but the powerful celestial phoenix organ gave Wu Ying a single opportunity to fix himself. The Jiu Fing's 9 human heads held sufficient wisdom retained in the organ to guide the wind cultivator back to the perfected human form. At the same time, from the chest of the phoenix came his greatest and storied mercy and the union of yin and yang. A powerful ingredient, along with the formation and techniques to entirely rebuild the broken cultivator, to bring him back to the state of lawlessness required to step across the river of mortality. Though Wu Ying could have existed for centuries as a mortal cultivator, that would have been all he could ever be. Perfection was required, for the celestial bureaucracy will allow no obvious defect, not in its vaunted halls, not among the immortals that oversaw the Middle Kingdoms. A flawless man of order and perfection turned to mortal and immortal alike. And what that said of the imperfect immortals who achieved such a state through fate and fortune, well, perhaps that was something to be discovered later.
Thank you so much for sharing your work with us and for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarage.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.